Every great product you use, whether it's the phone in your hand or even the chair you're sitting on right now, had to survive something I like to call the design gauntlet. It's this really intense journey that takes a simple idea and turns it into something real, something you can actually use. So today, we're going to run that gauntlet together and see exactly how it all works. So, have you ever just looked at something, say a brand new office chair, and wondered, how in the world did they come up with this? Well, I can tell you it is definitely not magic. It's a really deliberate, super fascinating process. And you know what? We're going to use that exact chair as our guide to get through this whole design gauntlet. All right, first things first. Before anyone even thinks about sketching or building, the design team has to make a huge decision. They have to choose their fundamental approach. Think of it like the operating system for the whole project. And this one choice, it literally shapes everything that comes after. So, at the very highest level, there are really two main paths you can take. You've got the linear approach, which is pretty much a straight shot from start to finish. Or you can go with the iterative approach, which is way more of a continuous loop of just refining and improving. Let's break both of those down. Okay, so the linear process, it's a lot like following a recipe, right? You just move from one step to the next, in order. So for office chair, you'd start by discovering that, hey, a lot of people have back pain. Then you define the problem. They need better lumbar support. Next, you design the chair, develop a prototype, and finally, you deliver the finished product. See, it's a super straightforward path, just A to B. Now, iterative design, that's a whole different ballgame. It's all about feedback loops. So instead of that straight line, you'd build a really quick prototype of our chair, let a bunch of people test it out, and then you evaluate what they say. Maybe they say the armrests are too high. Okay, no problem. You just refine the design and you repeat that whole cycle again. And again, getting a little bit closer to the perfect chair with every single loop. Okay, so once a team has picked a process, the idea has to face its next big filter: people. I mean, think about it. A product is totally useless if people can't use it, or even worse, don't want to use it. This is the part where everything starts to center on that human element. And that brings us right to something called user-centered design, or UCD for short. With UCD, every single decision gets measured against the user's experience. So with our chair, the team is constantly asking questions like, is this adjustment lever intuitive enough? Or does this seat cushion actually reduce fatigue after 8 hours? It's all about solving real problems for real people. Inclusive design, well, that takes things even one step further. See, instead of focusing on some imaginary average user, it asks a much bigger question. How can we make one single elegant solution that works for everyone? And that means thinking about a huge range of abilities, ages, and body types right from the very beginning of the process. And this naturally leads us to the physical side of things, ergonomic design. This is basically the science of fitting the product to the person, not the other way around. It uses real data about the human body. Our size, our limits, the way we move. And for an office chair that you're going to be sitting in for hours on end, this stuff is absolutely crucial. So what does that mean in practice? Well, it means the designers are asking some very specific questions. Does the chair promote good posture? Is there enough clearance for your legs to fit comfortably? And are the controls easy for literally anyone to operate regardless of their physical strength? These are the absolute core questions that ergonomic design has to answer. So at this point, we've got a great user-focused ergonomic concept. Awesome. But can we actually build it? And I mean, build it at scale? This brings us to the next stage of the gauntlet, what I like to call the manufacturing reality check. This is where design for manufacturing, or DFM, comes in. And it's all about thinking like a factory right from day one. For example, can we design our chair's frame so it can be stamped from one single piece of metal instead of having to weld 3 separate pieces together? You better believe that answering that question in the design phase is infinitely cheaper than trying to fix it on the assembly line. And right alongside that is design for assembly, or DFA. The principle here is super simple. The fewer parts you have, the less time and money it takes to put the thing together. For our chair, this could be the difference between a base that needs 12 different screws and one that just clicks into place with 4. It's just fewer parts, fewer problems. Okay, we've made it. We're at the final and maybe the most important stage of the design gauntlet. Our idea has been refined, it's been tested, and we've made sure it's manufacturable. But what happens when the product is old and worn out? What happens at the end of its life? Now we have to think about its legacy. This is where sustainable design comes in.
And really, it's a kind of promise. It's about designing products with a deep, genuine respect for the environment. And that means looking at the entire life cycle of our office chair, from the raw materials we dig out of the ground to make it, all the way to what happens when it eventually gets thrown away.
And the goals here are crystal clear. We want to reduce the consumption of non-renewable resources, minimize waste during production, and like we said, consider that entire product life cycle. Can our chair be easily recycled? Can its parts be replaced to extend its life? For a modern designer, these questions aren't optional anymore. They're essential. So you might be wondering, how do designers actually do all this? Well, they can use a really simple but incredibly powerful framework to help guide their decisions. It's known as the 6 Rs. This framework basically challenges the designer with a question at every single step. Reduce. Can we make this chair with less material? Refuse. Can we just say no to using non-recyclable plastic for the packaging? Rethink. Can we design it differently so it can be taken apart for repair? Can the base be reused as, say, a small stool? And finally, is the entire thing easy to recycle when it's all said and done? So to wrap all this up, I want to leave you with a question. Using all the principles we just ran through, from the design process to the user to manufacturing and its end of life, why is a simple bamboo toothbrush a more sustainable design than a plastic one? Really think about it. The answer tells you everything you need to know about just how powerful this design gauntlet really is.